Well, it didn't take long for the NHL offseason to get off to a wild start. We got coaches coming out of purgatory to be the man to try and get Connor McDavid his cup. We got captains requesting trades by saying they want to take their talents to South Beach like LeBron. The draft is right around the corner. Rumors are everywhere, so let's cover it all and what it means for each team involved. First one is the big one that broke during the Stanley Cup final, and it's that Mike Babcock would potentially be the next coach of the Edmonton Oilers. Now that shocked everyone because the last time we saw Babs, he was excommunicated from the league before even coaching a game in Columbus. Why? Well, reports had surfaced that Babcock had asked players to show him photos on their phones during meetings. The controversy quickly escalated into an NHLPA investigation, and before coaching a single regular season game, Babcock resigned. The Blue Jackets later admitted that they got it wrong when hiring him in the first place, and so after that, everyone thought that Babs was as good as retired. Now, that was all until he was linked to go to Edmonton earlier this month. It was revealed that Babs had already met with the team owner, Daryl Cates, and had spoken with some of Edmonton's top players. But the NHLPA, the Players Association, said, hold on a second here, we got to look into this. And so, according to Elliot Friedman, the NHLPA objected to the possibility of Babcock returning before a full review of the Columbus situation took place. Now, some veteran players like Boone Jenner and Johnny Gaudreau at the time publicly stated that they did not view the interactions negatively. However, investigations later found that several younger players were quite uncomfortable with the experience, and because Babs said, yeah, whatever, I quit, the matter was never fully investigated, so that leads us to this situation. The league reviewed and said that their investigation has concluded, and even in the light least favorable to Mike Babcock, there is no current basis to restrict his employment in the league. Basically, that means he may have been an asshole, but legally he didn't do anything wrong to not allow him to coach in the NHL. Now, for the hockey side of it, Babcock has always had the reputation of being a brilliant tactical coach. Even players that aren't very fond of him have said that he knows the game extremely well. The counter argument to that, though, is that he had a Detroit team that was filled with Hall of Famers, and his gold medal teams with Canada included some of the best teams that we've ever seen assembled. However, the main point of contention has always been how he's treated players off the ice, as we know. Obviously, you got the Columbus thing, the Marner situation where he asked them to rank his teammates on their effort level. He benched Mike Modano right before he could get his 1,500th career game. The list goes on, but maybe he's changed. Or maybe he hasn't, and the Oilers don't really care because winning is the only priority. Although that does seem kind of counterintuitive because part of winning is about building a culture where players want to come and play. And Jason Gregor reported that the feeling around the league is that the opportunity to play with McDavid and Draisaitl has diminished with the potential that Mike Babcock is the coach. So many people think the Oilers got no clue what they're doing, especially because no matter who is the coach, the issues in Edmonton are as much personnel as it is tactical. The turnover the Oilers had on their roster and in the bottom six last season absolutely killed their ability to generate consistent offense outside of the McDraisaitl combo. The advanced numbers reflected this, as well as majority of the forwards ranked below average in both shots off the forecheck and shots off the rush. Defending was a challenge as well, as they struggled to protect around their crease under sustained zone time. They had troubles breaking out the puck earlier in the season as well. They also allowed the most rebound goals in the league, which is part of the bigger problem in Edmonton, and that is goaltending. Anytime your tandem is Connor Ingram and Shanghai Tristan Jarry, that is not a goaltending situation that is going to win a Stanley Cup. With that current roster, it doesn't matter who the coach is and what tactics they end up implementing because they flat out need better players. But who knows, maybe Stan Bowman finds a way to have a hell of a summer and bring a better roster to the ice when the season starts, and maybe Mike Babcock finds a way to get the best out of the best players in the world and out of the roster that Stan Bowman ices. Now, the funny part about all this is that this whole Babcock situation only transpired because Vegas refused to give Bruce Cassidy permission to talk to Edmonton. That leads us to our next storyline in Vegas. Not even a week removed from the Stanley Cup final, Vegas announced that John Tortorella will not be coming back as the coach next season. He will be spending the rest of the summer trying to pick up his clothes that he left in Carolina after Game 5. The crazy part is that GM Kelly McCrimmon said that Torts actually want to come back and coach Vegas, but they were like, nah, we're good. They hired coach Ryan Craig, and if you have no clue who the hell that is, well, join the rest of us. He coached the Vegas AHL squad for the last 3 years, and we're going to wait and see what he can bring to the table. Doesn't matter who's the coach, though, because Vegas was voted the most hated team in the country. But when Jack Eichel found that out, this is what he said.
I'll say this. If you ask guys in the league, Vegas ain't on people's no-trade list. So,
Now, funny thing you mentioned that, Jack, because the other big storyline to watch this offseason is Dylan Larkin. Larkin officially requested a trade out of Detroit during the playoffs, and it shocked absolutely everyone. That's because it's not every day you see the captain of an Original Six franchise who was born and raised in Michigan want out of the organization. There are multiple layers to this. First, let's start with the reasoning. The biggest one is that Dylan Larkin wants to win now, and he feels that Detroit is nowhere close to that goal considering that they've missed the playoffs for the last decade. Being 30 years old, he wants to compete for a Stanley Cup. There's also the relationship with the GM Steve Yzerman and the Yzer plan. Detroit has been relatively stagnant with their decisions at the past deadlines, and Larkin has voiced his frustration because of it. Here's the kicker. He's got 4 years left on his deal with a no-trade clause. So as if he didn't piss off Red Wings fans enough, the 3 teams he gave on his list of where he'd be willing to go is Florida, Minnesota, and like Eichel said, Vegas. Other teams have entered the mix as well, like San Jose and Dallas. So overall, it's a mess. And because Stevie Y, in theory, could give Larkin the double bird and say, I'm not trading you until I get the right offer, it puts both parties in an awkward spot that long term, it seems like a lose-lose situation. The truth about it all is that it should have never gotten to this point, and really, the most recent March collapse from Detroit highlighted issues with the roster. Offensively, they didn't forecheck well at all. In return, that led to very minimal ozone possession and a lot of time spent defending. That was compounded by their lack of ability to break the puck out. Their exit success rate of their entire decor, aside from Mo Seider, was in the 50th percentile or lower, and it kept them on their heels for a lot of games. Now, Larkin, despite dealing with an injury down the stretch, didn't exactly help the Red Wings get over the hump either. The biggest significance of this trade request is that there seems to be a shift in power between player and organization, especially after Team USA won Olympic gold. It does seem like more superstars on that team are willing to call their shot and go to a place where they can win. Whether or not people think that Larkin is that caliber of player to be demanding trades is irrelevant because the wheels are in motion, and it's entirely possible that he won't be the last American star to request a trade. Then, of course, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have somehow remained at the center of the conversation through the entirety of the NHL playoffs because of the Marner stuff and winning the draft lottery. The Leafs actually made the first trade of the offseason, sending Simone Benoit and Giuseppe Wonderwall to the Philadelphia Flyers for Sammy Earson, Emil Andre, and a third-round pick. So naturally, everyone's like, what the hell is Toronto doing? Well, one thing is for certain under John Chayka, he wants to totally revamp how the Maple Leafs play with a more emphasis on analytics. That includes bringing in some D-man who can break the damn puck out. Toronto struggled with that big time last season, and Emil Andre can help with it. Toronto also felt comfortable with their goaltending depth, and with them not being sold on the health or consistency of Wall, they've moved on. So, congrats to Philly for grabbing the next future Conn Smythe winner and getting a solid tandem between Wall and Villadar. The Leafs weren't finished there, though. They went completely off the board, hiring a coach. After interviewing close to 25 different coaches, they landed on Jim Hiller. Kings fans say good luck with that one, pal. Get ready to learn the 131 special, and we will get to that in a few seconds. But Hiller was the Kings coach up until March of last season, and then he got canned, and LA proceeded to go on a run to make the playoffs. Naturally, everyone in Toronto said, what the fuck is this at first? But this hire does make sense for Toronto for a few reasons. First, the biggest advantage Hiller brings is familiarity. He already knows Austin Matthews and William Nylander from his time as an assistant in 2015 to 2019 on the Leafs bench. More importantly, he was heavily involved in the Leafs' offensive systems and power play during some of the most productive years the core has ever had. Tactically, expect to see Austin Matthews shift back over to the left flank to get back to his more catch and release trigger play that Toronto would leverage back in the day. You throw Gavin McKenna on the right flank, and there's a lot of enticing options to look at for Hiller. Second is the analytical numbers. Get used to more teams really leaning into analytics, with the Hurricanes finally winning a cup. Analytically, the Kings teams that Hiller coached actually did pretty well. In 175 games under Jim Hiller, their goals against per game was first in the NHL. Their 5v5 goals against was also first in the NHL, and their 5v5 goals for percentage ranked third in the NHL. Now, the Kings during that span did play both the 1-3-1 and the 1-2-2 neutral zone forecheck. In the 23-24 season, Hiller took over from McClellan halfway through the year, and they stuck with that 1-3-1. They did it so well that players from opposing teams came out in the media and voiced their frustration in playing against it. However, the 1-3-1 is designed to force the puck carrier into a very congested area with no pass or skate options, leaving the only option to be a dump in. However, Edmonton picked that apart in the 24 playoffs by using their speed and skill to make these area passes around the initial wall to support and then make a play from there. So then after the first round elimination, the LA players said that they want to move away from the 1-3-1 as it struggled to create offense, and that's exactly what they did the next season, adopting a more passive 1-2-2 neutral zone forecheck in the first full season under Jim Hiller. And it actually worked when creating more offense, as their high danger chances for and goals for saw dramatic improvement from the previous season. But then they met Edmonton again in the first round, and this time the overall passivity of the 1-2-2 in the neutral zone just kept allowing guys like McDavid and Draisaitl to keep reloading on zone entries with possession and speed. The Kings struggled to hold leads in that series as they dominated in the first two periods, but eventually the dam broke in the third. Edmonton had their way and once again eliminated them in round one. So there you go. He might be a perfect fit in Toronto with them not being able to get out of the first round. This past season, it seemed like the trust between the coach and the team wasn't at 100% after that. They were wildly inconsistent for much of the year, and so they fired Hiller in March. So the Kings are built much differently than the Leafs. There's a lot more offensive talent, and we're going to see what Saga does with the rest of the roster. And the first big piece comes with who they select first overall, and it would be hilarious if Toronto didn't pick McKenna. Around the league, too, there are tons of storylines. You got the free agency pool, which isn't as deep as we would all like, but teams have a ton of cap space, including the Hurricanes, who just won the cup, being $12 million under the cap. You also have the Panthers. What do they do in net with Officer Bob looking like he's probably going to leave town? Do they try and get Connor Hellebuck? That would be a nightmare for the rest of the league. You got Makar and Hughes, both eligible to sign an extension on July 1st. Ovi, I know for a fact he's slamming beers on a beach right now, but are we going to see one last year in the NHL? You also have Robertson in Dallas being an RFA, as well as the top three picks of the 2023 NHL draft in Bedard, Carlson, and Fantilli, all being restricted free agents too. The Sabres are also looking to deal Bowen Byram, and things could heat up really quickly here. Or maybe they don't. Who knows? The draft is right around the corner and free agency is here as well. We're going to have coverage on all of it. So drop a comment down below on what you think is the biggest storyline going into the offseason. Who do you think makes the biggest splash? Let us know down below, and make sure you don't miss any of our in-depth breakdowns for when the news drops by subscribing and turning on notifications. I'm Anthony. I do all the deep dives on the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.